Hey, man, you want to check out a Comet tonight at like 2 a.m.? It's going to be wicked cool, man. It's going to be a real bitchin' time.
Rad.
Right?
They're doing that in the comments. These are getting really bad.
Hi, I'm Mike Butler.
And I'm Mike Field.
And we're cut off from the world at an isolated hotel. That's right, it's time for Forgotten Horror 6, Fear the Darkness. Each episode we discuss a film that, for a variety of reasons, was forgotten by audiences. Maybe their parasitic twin brother was talking too loud in the theater, or they were too busy tracking down a ghost in a mansion. Or perhaps the movie didn't catch on with the audience in its initial run because they were trapped in a cabin in the woods. We'll discuss what we love about the movie, or maybe don't love about it, but we'll always recommend you revisit it. Unless you've been turned into a zombie by a passing comet. If you survived being attacked by werewolves in the Scottish Highlands, we want to hear from you. We're on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. Like, share, subscribe. Our podcast is available on all platforms for your listening displeasure.
Happy Halloween, everybody.
Yeah.
A special Halloween episode of Forgotten Horror, Fear the Darkness, Season 6, Fear the Darkness. Sorry, I screwed that up.
We're keeping it spooky.
That's right. So we did this last year, and we thought it'd be a cool thing to do this year, just have kind of like a Halloween episode. So here it is. And Mike, actually, you know what? How you doing? I was going to say, what are we doing? But how are you doing?
You know, I've been doing pretty good. I'm not much of a people person, and all the people have turned to Cheetos. And I have run of the mill of everything. I got myself a couple of cars, some nice new clothes, a couple of Uzis. It's just been a really good time.
Good times. The end of the world. Good times. That's right. We are doing the 1984, I guess, Forgotten Horror Comedy Night of the Comet. Yeah, I've never seen this film. Never heard of it. So
you never even heard of it?
No.
Oh wow. Oh, interesting.
No. So, all right, let's get into it. Night of the Comet, runtime of 95 minutes, rated PG-13, production budget of $700,000. Release date came out on a Friday, November 16th, 1984, and its opening weekend, it did $3.6 million.
Wow.
Compared to that production budget, holy crap. Domestic, there is no international release. Domestic is also the worldwide total, which is $14.4 million. Big hit.
I'm surprised we didn't get like even cheesier 2, 3, 4, 5 Nights of the Comet.
Who knows?
Wow.
Production company was Thomas Coleman and Michael Rosenblatt Productions and Film Development Fund, and it was distributed by Atlantic Releasing Corporation. I said it came out on the 16th. Let's go back a week to the 9th, November 9th, 1984. You had a wide release. Oh, God, you devil, George Burns. Nobody knows what I'm talking about. And No Small Affair. Then you had an unlimited release, Silent Night, Deadly Night. Garbage Day, everybody. I think that was from the first one, maybe from the second one. I'm not sure. And an unlimited release of A Nightmare on Elm Street. I don't know if you've ever heard of that film. It's quite popular.
It's coming back as they're redoing it as a 4K re-release.
There you go. Johnny Depp sucked into the bed in 4K. The day that this came out, the 16th, you had a wide release of Just the Way You Are and Missing in Action, a little Chuck Norris there, and a limited release of Razorback, which is another horror film. The 23rd, the week after, you had a wide release of Supergirl, Butler's favorite. No, not his favorite. And a limited release of Falling in Love and a re-release of A Christmas Story. And A Christmas Story actually comes out a wide release the following week after. So big time popular movie. All right. This film was written and directed by Tom Eberhardt, who's done Captain Ron, Gross Anatomy, and Without a Clue. He's also done All I Want for Christmas and Honey, I Blew Up the Kid. He wrote those. Cinematographer was Arthur Albert, who's done Happy Gilmore, Surf Ninjas, and Heart Condition. Composer was David Campbell, All the Right Moves and Mind Games. Edited by Fred Stafford, who's done Ghost Rider, Too Fast and Furious. Actually, he was the ADR editor on those. Most of his credits are ADR editing. Produced by Wayne Crawford and Andrew Lane. Crawford has done Valley Girl and Jake Speed, and Lane has done Mortal Passions and Lonely Hearts. Not a big cast. He got
Because everyone's Cheetos.
Cheeto Dust.
Cheeto dust.
Robert Beltran as Hector Gomez from Butler.
Star Trek Voyager, Chakotay.
There you go. He's also Nixon, and he was a voice in Freebirds. Catherine Mary Stewart plays Regina Belmont from Butler.
Wow.
The Last Starfighter, a movie we did.
Oh, that's right.
A Weekend at Bernie's. Kelly Maroney as Samantha Belmont, Regina's sister from Fast Times at Ridgemont High and the soap opera Ryan's Hope. Sharon Farrell as Doris Belmont, the stepmom, I guess, right? Not the mom, the stepmom.
She's the stepmom, yeah.
She's in It's Alive and Can't Buy Me Love. Mary Woronov. Sorry, Mary. She plays Audrey White, or just Audrey in this film. She's in Death Race 2000 and Eating Raoul. I should say that Beltran is also in Eating Raoul as well. Jeffrey Lewis as Dr. Carter as Thunderbolt and Lightfoot and the Devil's Rejects. He's kind of like the main bad guy scientist kind of thing. Scientists are bad in this film. All right, so Mike, how many times have you seen this film?
So I have seen this 3 times, I think. Each time I've never seen the beginning. The closest I got, because I've always seen it like on the Sci-Fi Channel. Okay. So I think the closest I got to was the commercial break ended or whatever, and it was the sunrise coming up, and she's in the theater and she wakes up. And every other time I've seen it like closer to them in the radio station and stuff.
With the projection. She's gonna make it.
If I'm gonna make it with you, I'm just getting $15 to make it. Let's not say I'm getting $50 to make it with you.
Right.
But I kept seeing it, and like each time it was on, like I'd watch it because it's dumb, it's fun. It's a comedy, but it's not a comedy. They definitely know what they're doing. It's definitely self-aware, but I wouldn't call it a comedy. But the reason I put this on the list is we did Halloween 3 last year, and that was a very cheesy 80s type film. Night of the Comet's been on this list, and I was like, it would be a good Halloween one because I think we decided 3 would be good because it's fun and it's like whatever.
Because everyone knows the other ones.
Exactly, yeah. It's not the slasher.
It's not technically a Halloween, Michael Myers Halloween. I think that's why we did every season of the witch.
And I was very curious to see what your thoughts, because I knew this was low budget. Like, I remembered the basic plot, but I didn't remember exactly what happens.
Right.
But I remembered it's just steeped in 80s, like just the music, the design, the look, everything. It was super low budget. So I was curious to see like what you would think of it. Like I expect that you're not going to enjoy it. But I was very curious to see what your reactions would be to it, because it is very much like I've never really seen a movie like this done well in a way that where I'm like I'm okay with it, and I'm like I'm in the ride, or I don't know what I'm saying anymore. So like there's a term like I'm taking the ride. I'm okay with taking the ride with the director and the writers and the actors and stuff like that. Like it's stupid, it's silly, it's fun, it's irreverent, it's like the soundtrack's awesome, it slaps. I like 80s music.
But that's not Cyndi Lauper doing Girls Just Want to Have Fun.
That's not her version.
No, that's not her.
This
version.
is a different version.
Yeah.
It's still a fun movie. So I was just very curious what you'd think, and I thought it'd be a good Halloween movie because it's very much not heavy. It's kind of lighter fare. So I thought it'd be a fun movie to put on Halloween. But I am very curious what your reaction is. But I think you've already given away your reaction. So
really,
take just the way you were talking about, like isn't Night of the Comet or something like that. You let your hand slip. But let's.
Not that it's a big mystery.
But I was curious. Sometimes you play it cool, and I'm like, I don't know, and then you say you don't like it. I'm like, oh, not that I'm like that disappointed if you don't like it now. Right. But you take it away. What did you
take it away, Mike? All right, look, boo. I think I'm back and forth. I do respect the indie. I do respect the $700,000 budget, what they did, the indie nature of it. I'm always like that of anything. I understand. Like I like what they're saying in terms of, but like most 70s and 80s films are talking about the evils of capitalism, the evils of consumerism, because they do have a couple comments there in terms of like when they go to the mall.
Right. That was the big thing back then.
Like when the science is like, what would a teenage girl do at a time? Like stuff like that.
They would go to not the department store. What does he say? It's real lame.
They go shopping.
The something arcade.
Yeah. So like that was like, like
the shopping arcade.
Yeah,
that's
like that was kind of prevalent in the 70s and 80s, like with Dawn of the Dead did that as well, the original. So yep. I get that. It's tough for me to because there's times when I'm watching and I'm just like, okay, but then I'm like, well, that's the movie. You know what I mean? Like, so you know what I mean? Like you said, like they're self-aware. Like I understand that they're not trying to do something that they're not trying to do.
Right. It's not trying to be serious. It's exactly what it is. Yeah.
But I think that I'm just not, I can't get fully on board like you because I'm just not laughing out loud at stuff as much. Like I don't find it as funny. I think maybe that's it.
I think there are some really good lines that I like. There are a couple lines that I laughed at, but I don't think it's laugh out loud funny. You're right. It's not.
I'm not a huge fan of the sister, Kelly Maroney, Samantha, like Kelly Maroney's character. I just don't think she's solid or strong.
I thought she was annoying the first when I used to watch it, but I was actually okay with it this time because she's got some of the better lines every once in a while. She
does, but I just don't think she is a strong actress at this point. I'm not saying now or she isn't, but like I wasn't a big fan.
Sure. Okay.
Like the whole like they see Hector and it's just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna make it with him. Oh yeah, we're gonna like the whole stuff at the end when they're with the family with the 2 kids, like stuff. It's just kind of like it's not as funny as I guess I want it to be. So I couldn't really be like, oh man, this is great. It is what it is. It's. I wouldn't say I was having like a great time watching it, but I don't hate it. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I get you. Yeah.
I'm not trying to hate on it because like I said, it's an indie, it's a cheaply made film. Like a lot of the notes I have are terms of like, they were just like, one of the notes, which I love, is the director was telling them that like, listen, if something happens during the scene.
Oh, do it as your character.
Yeah. Don't react to it as you wouldn't because we don't have the time.
We don't have the film. Yeah.
Right. So when Samantha's got the Uzi and it jams and she has that comment, like that's because it jammed.
Yeah.
So like stuff like that. Like I thought like that's cool. That's a cool like indie thing. And I get that. And that's like happy accidents type of thing. Like you get it. And it becomes like what's one of the big hits of the film, like that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So all that stuff I enjoy. I don't really know like the how the scientists are so super smart, but they left the filters.
Oh yeah. The vents open. They're super dumb.
And how they're just evil now. Like scientists are bad. Like stuff like that.
I don't think they're trying to say scientists are bad. These scientists are bad because all they care about, well, they weren't even science. They were a think tank. Right. And they just were afraid the comet was going to hit and went into hide. And then it turned out they were turned into zombies. And now they'll do anything they can to make a serum, no matter who dies. Right. All that matters. And the main bad guy says, all that matters is survival. Survival at all costs. That's the whole point of their think tank. Right. And I think that's when the other woman, Audrey starts kind of being like against that, like draining people and taking survivors and killing them.
But her whole acting style is like she's just kind of like, as if I don't want to be here. Like,
oh yeah, it's completely odd. It's a weird choice.
It's just exactly. It just feels like hey, we need to do this scene. Fine, but I'm doing it whatever way I want to do it. Like like it felt very much like that. I think that if this movie had maybe double the budget, like had 1.5 million, I think maybe we could have gotten. They could have done stuff they wanted to do, and maybe I would have been like more on board. But I
think they would have done too much then.
I can't get to where you are.
Well,
I don't think you're wrong for liking it. You know what I mean? Like
I get you. Yeah, okay. I think that which is a fine comment. Like when you were talking about like it's a comedy, and this is what I was kind of afraid of. Like no, I was like, oh, feels good to think it's a comedy, but like it's listed as a comedy, and I noticed I've never obviously researched the film before. But like it's listed as a comedy and it really isn't. Well, it's like satirical. Yes, satirical. It's self-aware, but it's not really a straight up comedy. And I think that if you're watching it and you're like, where's the comedy? Where are the jokes? Like, I think it helps that I kind of grew up on the movie, like watched it as a teenager and have watched it a few times since. But going into it now, like, where are the jokes? Where is it? It's not like Shaun of the Dead.
No, but I think correct. But I think the joke is the fact that how these teenage girls react.
Oh, are reacting to the end of the world, for sure.
And quite honestly, Mike, if it's not listed as a comedy in terms of like you're picking it out at the...
You'd be even more mad about it if you got it. Yeah.
You probably would be like, what is this? Because you're taking it seriously. And I think because it's saying it's a comedy, you're like, okay, it's supposed to be this way. So I think that kind of gives it a little bit of a cushion in terms of people liking it.
That makes sense.
So yeah, no, I think that's definitely... probably smart, but I do think I think they had to be like when they were doing it. They knew they were being stupid. They knew they were being silly.
Oh, 100%, absolutely. The director has said as much. Like they absolutely knew the movie they were making.
Right. So, I mean, we kind of we went through the character a little bit. I didn't find any of these. I never found anything in the notes. So, but I'm curious, like how they did that. What did you think of just like the red sky?
I really like the red sky, especially on the low budget.
Right.
And I think Elise watched most of the movie with me before she passed out. like she really liked the sky too. The haziness really works, especially like L.A. It's hazy, like it's kind of like maybe talk about like why at first she's like, oh, it's just hazy today, because back then L.A. was very hazy most of the time from pollution, and it looks really good. I think it looks really interesting. I will say there are some shots where you switch like an orange skyline, and all of a sudden it's not orange in the next shot at the alleyway, because it's budget constraints. But I think it looks really good. It puts it in its own like place, its own style, which is really nice, especially on a low budget. And that's one of the things I really remembered from the film, is that it had that orange haze for most of it.
Right. Okay.
But I don't know how they did it on such a low budget.
So there's a couple stuff in here that I kind of want to go to in terms of like just moments in the movie. The casual racism from the lead when she gets the gun from Hector Gomez, and she's like dating it at the bar.
Oh, yep. Like, I put
what is that?
My note is actually where is it? Oh, date night in the barrio. Casual racism. Love it.
Yeah. Just like, all right, I guess we're doing that. It's 84.
There's also there's the other line that's like, you don't think he's gay, do you?
Oh, I know.
Only guy you ever met and the last guy in the world, he doesn't want to make it with you. That means the last guy on earth is either a gentleman or a F word in LA.
Like, get canceled.
No.
But yeah. No, I mean it's the time. So yeah, so that's fine.
Oh, it's still kind of a funny line though.
The whole thing, like the moment when the projectionist is, I guess, giving out the film, right? He's
giving someone else a 3D version of a film. It's like, it gets,
and he's just like $100, man. Come on, man. He's like 110. All right, now we're talking $10. Like you're haggling over $10, and then you're gonna give 15 to her to hang out.
I think that's the whole point.
So stupid.
He's an idiot.
Yeah. And let me just say,
where's my $15? Tell him you're mad too.
Let me just say this: if I'm a manager at a movie theater and my employee's on the clock and they're
playing Tempest,
they're going home. They're not. I'm not begging them to walk the theater.
Oh, 100%. Yeah,
they're going home. Like that's just like, come on, get lost. You're out of here. Like I've sent people home for far less back in the day.
You want to talk about the Tempest game for a second? You know what made me really mad? She goes back and she completes Tempest. The next morning, she's downstairs. She gets the 6th place DMK or whatever, and she beats the score, and she's like, got it, 6th place. Yeah, that's not how high scores work. Now you have to replace 7, 8, 9, and 10.
Same note. Yeah, that's just somebody who either didn't know how video games worked back then,
or they were just like, screw it. Yeah, you got the high score.
Who cares? Yeah. Where did they get the guns from? I know they said they were in the locker, but where did that come from?
I had the same note. Like, obviously, Hector went with them because his pistol changes from the 6-shooter, the little snub shooter, to an actual pistol.
The Uzis that never need to be reloaded.
Except they're not Uzis, because they're saying Daddy would have gotten us Uzis. So they're Uzi-like weapons, whatever they are. Right. But yeah, so you skip, they went to the naval base in Alameda, which is funny because in Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, that's where they steal the nuclear power. Sorry. But yeah, they must have just skipped that entire sequence.
I shouldn't call you a nerd. I watched Star Trek.
Yeah. You're probably like, oh yeah, that's right. Oh God. But yeah, so they must have skipped that. Probably too expensive. But yeah, they totally skip them going to the naval base. They do talk about it at the radio station.
Right. Which is funny. Like when one of the notes, it was like the radio station was staged in a warehouse. It's like, no kidding.
Of course, yeah.
Really? Because when you first walk in, I'm like, is this a dance hall? And then I'm like, oh, this is the radio station? No way.
Yeah. No soundproofing, no soundproof booth.
This room right here.
It's a desk.
Even bigger than what a radio station would look like.
I did love that neon wall with the musicians playing as it like blinked. I was like, yeah.
My other note was, at times in the movie, it felt like the soundtrack was competing with the dialogue. Did it feel like
100%?
And I was like, did Chris Nolan do this, Mitch? Was we working here back then?
I mean, obviously I haven't seen the movie in a while, but I don't remember that with the older versions I watched. Okay. So I wonder if that's the remaster.
Which it looks good for a.
It does for an old indie.
Really good, yeah.
Yeah, it's 40 years old now.
Yeah, but the remaster was done not too long ago, I don't believe.
Right, yeah. So it looked really good, but yeah, I think that's part of the new sound mix, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if you like this film and you should go get the Blu-ray remaster because it looks really good.
It's one of the better cleanups, yeah.
So it was really impressive because you're just like, wow, this movie's 40 years old and it looks a lot better than some other films.
Yeah,
that are much younger or Yeah, much younger. Did you like the stuff in the department store with the guys at the?
I like.
What were they? Who were they again? They were not.
They were old. They were old stock boys. I liked the sisters going through them all, and girls just want to have fun playing. They're putting all the outfits like that's super 80s, and like obviously, what would the two teenage girls do? That's probably where the concept of the film started and branched out from. But yeah, the stock boys don't make much sense. It's like, do they want to eat them or do they want to kill them or like
they're not really turning yet. They are, but they're not.
One of them's like the main guy's turning, but yeah, the rest of them aren't. It's just like, why, if you think you're the only two people in the world, why are you killing the only two women left? It's like, why aren't you capturing them to do things with them later? Obviously, that's inappropriate, but like, why are you now like, why is your first thought kill the only women left in the world? And Elise and I were talking about it. It doesn't make any sense, that concept of just shoot first. Like, why are you kind of capture them? Mm-hmm. And the gunfight takes too long. It's just way too long.
Oh, right.
They have infinite ammo.
I love how the shoes are just fall like they're firing them. She's hiding them. Obviously, someone's up there just throwing shoes.
Yeah, she's got 10,000 shoes.
Like, yeah.
So I would say, like, one of my comments, like, that's probably my least favorite part of the movie.
Like, and I had a laugh at, so when they keep showing this shot of the guard outside of the compound, the scientists are clearly not caring that he's going to get, I guess, hit with the red dust, or he didn't, or whatever, but they keep showing him. And then when, at the end of the film, when they have Regina and Samantha, right? Mm-hmm. Inside the compound, and Hector pulls up, Hector pulls up with Samantha in the trunk, and he's just trying to get, and the guard's behind the fence. He's like, "Oh, hey, what's up, man?"
All of a sudden, he's on the other side of the fence.
No, like he's like, "Oh, let me show you something," and he just walks, and there's no fence anymore. Like, that's like Naked Gun type stuff. Like, I'm just like, what? Like, it was so stupid, and I'm just, oh god, it was just.
I didn't even notice
he's just,
that
like, behind the fence. And then he's like, "Hey, could you come over?" And he just walks, and there's no more fence. Just walks around. Just like, what? I don't understand. What's the purpose of this fence? And that's actually a cool shot because that's a forced perspective shot. That's a miniature in the background, and they got the fence in front. So that's
right, yeah.
That, which is pretty cool. Again, which is another thing I like in the movie.
Do you like the shot of the? They show it a couple times of the guy in the guard tower inside the cavern base, and it's the blue maze. I thought that was cool.
I guess that was like a couple. They did it twice. It was like a setup,
a match shot, yeah. And then it turns red when the alarm goes off. I thought that was kind of cool.
I mean, it felt kind of like Hawkeye in Thor when he's looking down.
Oh, and he's like, "I'm starting to root for this guy."
So that's what it reminded me of.
The two women that were like just so evil, just so like blasé about killing the kids. You're gonna see Santa Claus.
All the scientists were blasé. They were all just kind of like actively, or not even actively, just kind of like shrugging off. We're bad.
Passively evil.
Yeah. There's no excitement. There's no like fervor or nervousness or just kind of like tension in terms of like, we need to get a serum. They're just kind of like, well, we're just gonna drain them and then we'll drain the other girl.
Well, the evil guy's got some tension because clearly he's the one turning like sooner than that.
Right, but there's no tension in terms of like, oh my god, he's turning. We shouldn't be following. Like, just nothing like that.
Right.
You know, and then like when the whole plan of Hector at the end is to just get him in the car and blow the whole entire car up.
I think the plan was originally just blow the only car that could follow them up.
Right.
But when they were all getting in the car, he was like, oh, wait.
So there's stuff like there. Did you see the note about how the production designer, John Muto, was what he used, like what he did, like he used comic book sensibility for the look of the film, and that the characters are given specific colors? Did you see all that?
I did.
Right.
I mean, I get it. Obviously,
like the bad guys are blues and grays.
Samantha is
in brighter colors.
Yeah.
Regina is deeper colors because she's smarter. And Samantha is in bright, like day-glow colors, but because she's supposed to be like the Valley Girl. Like that's the whole.
She is the super 80s Valley Girl. She's very comic book, like just taken right out of there.
Right. Yeah. I like the note where they had to shoot in LA in the morning.
Oh yeah. Block traffic.
They weren't blocking traffic. They were shooting in the morning on business days because it wasn't busy. If you don't know Los Angeles too well, and I'm sure people out there know this already, anytime you see a shot of Los Angeles, like downtown LA where they have the skyscrapers, that's like a super small part of town. Like it's not
New York City. Yeah.
You know, no, totally. And it's like, you'll see the Fox Tower, which is obviously doubles in Die Hard. But like, that's it. It's maybe like 6 or 7, maybe more buildings now, but it's super it's a consolidated section. So on business days, it was, they're in the morning, no one's there. And they're waiting for cars at stoplights as they're stopping.
Yeah, stoplight. Yeah.
Their scene. So they weren't blocking them. They were just waiting for the stoplights.
And they had the cops that helped them out with that
Yeah.
are the cops that are in the nightmare sequences.
But I don't think they have the makeup on them. Do they even makeup?
They have makeup on
do
them.
they?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Because then they grab him in the hand, which I thought was a gross scene. I like that shot.
Oh, when she's
When she grabs the hand, her fingers are going into
that was
it.
probably half
bleeding.
the budget right there.
Probably. When it first started, I did not remember the dream sequence. I'm watching it going, when did she change her clothes? Like, I could get her getting into any kind of car and going, but it's like, why does she have this like wedding dress on? Did I miss the mall scene or what's going on? And then the cops stop her. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. And then she wakes up from the nightmare. I'm like, all right.
This movie is also a big influence on Joss Whedon,
I saw that.
where he talked about the character of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, his movie version of Buffy the Vampire Slayer was inspired by Samantha's character in this film. So that kind of like the idea of a cheerleader fighting evil kind of thing. So I thought that was a pretty cool moment. Eberhard talks about when writing the script, he just was asking teenagers what they would do if the world would end. And they were just kind of like, go shopping. Oh, just like, it wasn't, and they never were serious. And then he was like, well, what if there's no boys? Then they got like, oh yeah, like that's so like, that's where he got a lot of his inspiration, which, I mean, that's probably why this movie connects with a lot of people, like young people back then.
Yeah.
Did you also know that the clown, the scene when they first, in the morning, after everyone turns to dust, brick dust or Cheetos dust, which is actually brick dust they use. The clown that's waving. Do you know what movie that clown is in as well?
I did see the note. I don't off the top of my head.
That is the clown that Pee-wee ties his bike to in Pee-wee's Big Adventure when it's eventually stolen. So for those big Pee-wee Big Adventures out there, there you go. That clown is familiar.
So is Honey Nut Crunch Raisin Bran a real thing, or was it a real thing?
Honey Nut Crunch Raisin Bran.
Because that's what Samantha's eating in the house, or not Samantha?
Oh yeah, if she's eating it, it's real. Honey Nut. Yes, Honey Nut Crunch Raisin Bran. Yes, I believe so.
I was like, oh my god, it's like everything I want in like one tail. I was like, Raisin Bran and Honey Nut Crunch.
They have Raisin Bran now.
Yeah, but it's not Honey Nut Crunch and Raisin Bran born together. You can get Honey Nut Crunch or you can get Raisin Bran. But if I can get it in one box, man.
Pretty sure it was. I've had it.
Also, I don't know what kind of psychopath mixes their cereal like it's oatmeal after they pour it. I thought that was weird.
Well, hold up. What?
Well, she pours the Honey Nut Crunch cereal.
Okay.
She pours the milk in it. That Samantha has her go out, or
oh right, she goes out. So there's no kids.
Like Regina has her go outside. She's like, "There's no kids," and then she closes the door. When she goes back in, she's like mixing her cereal in the milk to get it all wet. And then I'm like, "Do you do that with your cereal?" Like I like it a little bit soft on the bottom, a little bit hard on top, and I get a little bit of both worlds.
It depends on the cereal. Also, if you put milk on, I do kind of get it in to get wet, but it still stays hard. You still got to get it out.
I mean, she's like,
no,
mixing it up. Like
I thought you were having an issue with mixing cereals because I mean, like I did that.
No. I just the way she's just mixing it up in the bowl over and over and over. I was just like, stop.
That's a weird thing to be.
Stop and eat it. I just like feel like it's busy actor busy work. Like,
maybe.
How long are my lines? What am I supposed to do with this cereal? I can't eat it.
That could be.
It's like, all right.
So, 2018, Orion Pictures hires Roxanne Benjamin to write a remake. She hands in the script in April 2019, and as of January 2023, Benjamin has says that this remake is still alive and it's just moving slowly. Do you want to see a remake? Is my question.
Yes, one of the things I was going to bring up is I think this is ripe for remakes. I think whether you call it Night of the Comet 2, 3, 4, and you just do it every like generation.
I should just call Night of the Comet 4 and be like, I don't know what happened.
That would be funny. Like I think you could do one with like the millennials. I think are too old now. You could do stuff with like Gen Z or Gen Alpha. Like what would they do if the world ended? And focus on a different generation of teenagers. And I think that would totally work.
Before you do that, you need to go watch Bodies, 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 which is a horror film with Pete Davidson. But it's about like kind of like
I remember when that came out. I didn't watch it yet.
It's a horror film. You should watch that because I think you'll kind of get a sense of what Night of the Comet would be.
Oh, I'm sure it'd be terrible. I'm sure I wouldn't enjoy it.
Bodies and Bodies, Bodies is not terrible. It's
like a look into that
young generational horror movie. And I think you would kind of be like, that's kind of where I think you would see Night of the Comet.
Sure, but I think that's where you're going with that.
Cheesy. I don't think it would be able to be this cheesy now. I think
audiences aren't going to appreciate it,
right?
Because they suck.
I mean, it could be. I think I'd love it to be indie. I would always love it to be indie, but I think you can't.
Oh, I don't think. Yeah, you don't do this with a big budget.
But with indie films, it's tough because while I love independent pictures and indie films, I think one thing that you need to go into is like not biting off more than you can chew. I think in some instances with Night of the Comet, I think that's what they were doing, and that's I kind of think where maybe my nitpicks are. It's just trying to do too much with, you know what I mean? Like the whole thing with and this is a simple thing, but the radio station being in the warehouse. It's like, you could have found something better than that. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's just some stuff like that. When you bite off more than you can chew with indies, I think then that kind of works against you. So at the remake, I think Bodies is a really good kind of litmus thing for you to watch and be like, and then you'd be like, okay, I can see some of this stuff where like a remake of Night of the Comet would work.
Sure.
But that's all. I just want to throw that out there.
But I do think you have to do what the director here did and go talk to teenagers now. I don't think like, who did you say was writing it?
Roxanne Benjamin.
That's what I thought. Like, hopefully, like, she went out and talked to people that are, you know, high school age. Like, what would you do now? Because like the shopping malls are dead. They're not going to the shopping malls. It's a different experience. Like, instead of the shopping mall, maybe they raid an Amazon warehouse or something like that to get all their stuff and, you know, that kind of things. But I do think it's ripe for a remake.
And for those who don't know, she is known for Body at Brighton Rock, which is a horror film, and There's Something Wrong with the Children of the horror film, and VHS. I think she's done some pieces of it or produced, or she's one of the creators, something like that. So
I do really like VHS.
She's in that horror world. So
you still have not watched VHS, right?
I have not, because I never, you know what it was? It was one of those things where I think it was during a time where I wasn't watching all. There's moments in my lifetime where I'm like, I wasn't always watching.
What?
Well, you know, I get like sick and tired of stuff, and you're just like, yeah. And I think it just came out, went, and I never caught it. I never came to the theater. I was never around. I never just went out and got it.
Right. I don't think it ever played locally.
No.
At least here, yeah.
It just kind of like came and went. And before I knew, there were 3 of them or something. I was like, oh.
3 or 4, yeah.
Okay. So, like, it just kind of slipped by.
I haven't watched any other ones, but VHS, the original, is very good.
Cool.
I recommend it.
All right. Well, I'll watch it when you watch Bodies. So then we'll see who goes first.
It'll be
you. So I have a quote here from the woman who played Audrey, Mary Woronov. I'm probably
Woronov?
Yeah,
I think it's probably Woronov.
Good job, Woronov. She initially doubted the film would have any longevity, saying in 1986 that it's, quote, it's not a cult movie at all. It is a fad movie. Fad, F-A-D. She went on to explain that the film will date very quickly because it's about Valley girls shopping at the mall and the bomb. That's not ahead of its time. It's not behind its time. It's just a combination of in elements. She's referencing the bomb, which is that's what the dust is. Like everyone just dies.
The bomb, yeah.
There, like, you know, because that's like the nuclear bomb. It's like a big fear all the time, everywhere, all the time. But yeah. So what do you think of that? She just kind of like doubted it would do anything.
I could absolutely see that. I could see people doubting it, and I think that the only reason this has staying power like that is because of its 80s-ness. It's so many people are nostalgic for that 80s, the 80s-ness of everything. And I think that this is the quintessential like 80s film. If you're like, what's 80s? And then you show them this, like, this is very 80s in terms of film 80s, not like brown, you know, wooden panel things and beige plastic cups, but and ashtrays everywhere. But this is like whatever everyone thinks of the 80s. This is very much it.
I mean, it's a cult movie now. It is.
Yeah.
I think we'll get into when we say why it's forgotten, which is going to come up in a couple of minutes. I think there's a really big reason why. You kind of already know it. Let me get to some of the more reviews. Vincent Canby of the New York Times called it a good-natured, end-of-the-world B-movie whose humor augments rather than upstages the mechanics of the melodrama. So he's saying that the humor helps the story along, not, you know,
hurts it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Agree with that? Okay. Neil Gaiman reviewed this for Imagine magazine. And he stated it's, quote, one of the most amusing, witty, imaginative, and thought-provoking films I've ever seen that was made with no budget and is also cheap exploitation. I think exploitation is a good word for this film. I think if we went a little bit more, it probably would have been a little bit more popular.
Yeah.
More exploitive.
I think thought-provoking. I don't know if this is thought-provoking.
I mean,
thought-provoking in a way of like...
Maybe...
I would think it thought-provoking in the way like Evil Dead is, or Usual Suspects, or these low-budget movies that blew up, and you're just like thought-provoking in like a filmmaker kind of way where it's like, I could do this.
Maybe, but it's got a heady topic of what if everyone was gone?
What would you do?
Sure. I mean, apparently it's I guess all the electric would stay on and all do work, but that's neither here nor there.
I believe that for like a short period of time.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. Why do you think... Oh, actually, you know what? Let's do this first. Why we think it's forgotten. Then I'll say, would you recommend it? So let's do, why do you think it's forgotten?
I think that 80s nostalgia, other than Stranger Things, is starting to fade away with my generation. My generation, millennials were born in the 80s. And although I think a lot of Gen Xers like yourself would be like, you weren't really there. You were too young to really experience the 80s. You experienced the 90s. We still think of ourselves as like 80s babies, and we still have a nostalgia for the 80s. I think that's because that's the media we consumed. Was all, by the time we were old enough to watch movies like 1990, 1991, all our movies were made in the 80s. So we have a nostalgia for it as well as like you do just for living through it. But I think that Gen Zers, Gen Alpha for sure, they don't have time for this stuff. They don't watch movies. They don't have time for that nostalgia of like pre cell phones, pre-internet. Like, what did you do? And I don't think they have that nostalgia for it. And I think this movie mines nostalgia or mines 80s-ness in terms of like Warren said, like, this movie's just a fad. It's like not experiencing that or not realizing that the 80s would kind of live on like that. I think that that's partially why it's wearing off. I think that it's not a straight up comedy. You really have to have that appreciation for that kind of exploitative, satirical kind of film, like you were saying, which I think nails it on the head. It is more of a satire.
But it made a lot of money.
It did back then.
Right.
And I think that it's not a straight up comedy, and it's the nostalgia period of like the younger people catching on to it is kind of fading away. And I think that places like the Sci-Fi Channel are not showing this anymore, or people don't have cable. And, I don't think Netflix is putting it up on their streaming. It's like top 10. I don't know who would show this. I don't know who would have on the rest of it. Sci-Fi did show it. That's where I used to watch it. Right. But yeah, I don't know. And I don't think it goes hard enough on horror or hard enough on comedy to really pull new people in.
See, now I thought you were going to say this and you didn't. So I'm glad that I'm bringing up this point.
Okay.
I think that it's part of the reason why it's forgotten. And you're talking about now, which I get. It's an older film and people are going to go back to it. But I think it's even like why it didn't have so much of it didn't stay with people in terms of later on. It's like because Nightmare on Elm Street came out a week after, which is a bigger film.
Sure.
And you're also in the 80s is known for slasher flicks. And because
it's not a straight up horror film. Yeah.
So it's not, I don't think it's the style of horror that was popular during that time. So I don't think it had enough chance to catch on in terms of a bigger crowd and a bigger audience. Now, granted, I was looking up the numbers we were talking. Granted, Nightmare on Elm Street did 25 million in its total run, more than that. So it's not back then, that's 80s numbers and, it's.
Yeah, for sure.
Inflation and stuff like that. I just think that it's not a film that is a casual horror person or horror buff is going to really latch on to. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of the things that we talked about probably turned a lot of people off, even though I'm saying I like it and I don't like this, but I like that. And you're talking about the goofiness of certain things. I think some people watch that and they're just like, this is stupid. I don't like this film.
No, sure.
I think.
But it's not straight up horror. It's not straight up comedy. Yeah.
Freddy, you got Jason, you got, Mike Myers, you got all these, like, these are the popular horror films. Those are the films people are going to see. I think that helped with probably why this film made money. But in terms of, I think Warnoff is right. I think it is kind of like stuck in that time period. And I think the cult classic aspect of it works in terms of it carrying on. But I don't think it only just carries on with people that love those movies, love horror.
What's interesting is I think almost everything you're saying about it is something you could apply to like the Evil Dead 1 and 2. Sure. And yet somehow Evil Dead 1 and 2 were able to break out of that, probably because they went heavier with the comedy or went heavier with the horror, depending on which of the sequels you watched.
But there's nobody in this film that is the level
as iconic. Sequel. Sure, yeah.
I mean, like, Ash is a great character, but Ash is not going to be a great character without Bruce Campbell.
But I do think that, Evil Dead just has grown, but It wasn't like crazy popular when it was first out. And I think that's part of why it stayed popular. But I think that's why at first it wasn't like this huge cultural thing like it is now.
When Evil Dead grew with the help of Sam Raimi growing as a director, like he became something.
A name and
working.
Bruce Campbell was a name.
There's nobody in this film and nobody who made this movie that has gone on to I know Tom, I talked about he did Gross Anatomy, but that's it. Like he's done a couple of films.
Honey, I Blew Up the Kid.
He wrote it. He didn't direct.
Oh, I thought he also directed
it. No, he wrote it.
Oh, okay.
But that's the thing. That's what I'm saying. Like there's not a lot of star power in this film. Which I'm surprised that she was in The Last Starfighter, Catherine Stewart. She was in this film and then just kind of she didn't hit.
Yeah.
Langenkamp, who was in Nightmare on Elm Street, actually auditioned for this film but didn't get it. So I guess.
Good for her. Yeah.
But yeah, I think I think for a lot of different reasons we can say it's forgotten, even though it did make money, even though it is a cult classic, even though, I never heard of it. You know what I mean?
I'm really surprised. Yeah.
Some things slip through the cracks, man. I don't like the people I hang with them watch this. Like I watched all those other ones.
I would be very curious, like John Doolin, who we worked with at the theater, who likes some of the other stuff.
I would just have him on the show.
I am very much. I wouldn't be shocked if he doesn't know that. Like I would think he would like this movie.
But like I wasn't hanging out with John back in the day. Like
I understand.
One of my buddies like.
But I'm just surprised that you don't know because you just have such a vast movie knowledge.
I watched a ton of horror films.
Exactly.
Never. So it's just it happened. One of those things. Who would you recommend this to now, though?
I think that like Elise was digging it until she fell asleep. That's just because she's got like
soft,
fall asleep. How many days did it take you to watch this movie?
Those are calculated. I know I don't want to stay up late because I have work the next day, Mike. You know what that is, right?
Oh, whoa. I broke. But I think I was showing it to Elise, and before she fell asleep, she was digging it. Like the 80s-ness, the music is good, the style is good. Like for people like us who really enjoy 80s things, I think it's definitely worth a watch. It's kooky, it's weird, it's different, it's fun. Like I said, I've never really watched another movie like this. That's not like you say it's a satire, and I think that's perfect. I didn't have a word for it, but it's not a straight up comedy, but it definitely knows what it is. It's tongue in cheek. It's not perfect. So I think anybody who does that, anybody who has an appreciation for horror where it's not like hardcore, like we keep talking about this season, but like not hardcore horror fans, not Terrifier fans, but even kind of Terrifier fans, because Terrifier, from what I've seen, gets kind of dumb and kooky in terms of like the clown and like the reactions to things. The clips I've watched on, not dumb in like a bad way, but dumb in like a silly kind of way, like not taking itself too seriously in between the kills. And I think that there's an appreciation for that somewhere, but I think you'd have to have a really deep appreciation for like low budget horror and understand it's not like Evil Dead, like they're just throwing a gallon of blood because it's all they could afford. It's just low budget. Here's how we're going to do this, or an appreciation for the 80s. And I think that's really the only people I could recommend this to. It's really hard to recommend it, but I do really enjoy this film.
That's fine. So Mike, I'm going to give you another, because you and Elise love the 80s stuff. I'm going to give you another recommendation. And I recommended this show to you before and you never watched it, which is sticking me off. But anyways, you guys should watch the Amazon series Red Oaks.
Oh, you did tell me about that. Yeah.
It's set in the 80s, but it's not a show that is like Stranger Things, which mines nostalgia. It's actually a show that you could have said like it was pulled from the 80s and it was shown now. I think you both would like that if you like that kind of stuff. So Red Oaks, Amazon, it's about guys who work at a country club, but it's about them, like one's a filmmaker and stuff like that. I think you would really like it.
Okay.
So that's Red Oaks I recommended to you, and Bodies. So there's two things you need to start watching. All right. I guess, well, actually, you know what? Tell everyone where they can find us, and then we'll get to it.
Okay. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts or wherever you're watching your podcasts on YouTube, or if you're watching us right now, that's the only place you can watch us. Well, while you're there, please like, rate, subscribe, comment. Let us know what you think of the comment, or what do you think like the best like quintessential 80s thing is in terms of either regular or horror. And if you'd like to support the show, we have a Patreon. We have a merch store. You can get merch, or we have a Patreon. If you join the Patreon for free, you could join the Discord and we'll talk to you and all that kind of stuff. And you could discuss movies with us. If you'd like to support the show, we have tiers. You get early access to episodes. You get discounts on the merch store. You get stickers. You get exclusive episodes. We did our Alien series this summer. We had done Beetlejuice. I don't know what we're doing in October, but I'm sure we did something. So we have all this exclusive stuff for you to check out on our Patreon page. And just like I said, a like, rate, subscribe, just you watching this episode. Thank you very much for checking us out.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, it's August right now that we're recording this. That's how far ahead we are. So join us next week as we move on from season 18, from Forgotten Horror Ends. All this comes down. New posters. Season 19 called Winter is Coming, which we couldn't think of a cool one, so we did that. We just stole Game of Thrones. So that's going to kick off first week of November, which starts tomorrow, obviously, because it's Halloween. We're going to stay in the 80s. 1986. We're going to talk about Peggy Sue Got Married. So
I've never seen it, but I know it's very popular, or I know it was famous back in the day.
It's very famous, and I can't believe you never saw it. So, anyways, yes, that's going to be next week. Peggy Sue Got Married. Thanks again for sticking with us for Forgotten Horror, and happy Halloween. Hopefully you got what you wanted when you went trick-or-treating. That's it. I'm Mike Field.
I'm Mike Butler.
And this has been Forgotten Horror. 6. Fear the Darkness. We'll see you next year for Forgotten Horror 7.
And remember, even though Halloween's over, you can always keep it spooky.